So far, you've learned how to define functions and how to call functions. But sometimes simply calling a function isn't enough. Sometimes a function just has to have some piece of data in order for it to perform its operation. And that's what this video is all about. This video is about passing arguments or passing pieces of data into a function when you call the function. Many times functions are designed to receive one or more pieces of data, one or more arguments when they're called, and then they use those arguments in some sort of an operation. Now, up to this point, you've called a number of the Python functions and passed arguments to them. So the whole concept of passing arguments to functions should be something that's familiar to you by now. For example, suppose we have a variable named x, and we will assign the value 10 to that variable. Well, if we want to call the print function, and we want the print function to print the value of x, then we would write a statement such as this. And you can see that the print function printed the value that is assigned to x. Well, here in this statement, x is an argument that is being passed to the print function. So we just simply wrote the argument in between the parentheses in the function call. Another example would be one of the data conversion functions that you've used so far. Let's say that we have the value 3.8 assigned to the variable y, and let's say that we want to assign x the value of y converted to an integer. So we would use the int function to convert y to an integer. Now in this statement, we're calling the int function, and we are passing y as an argument, and then this function returns the value of y converted to an int. So if we look at the value of x, we see that it indeed holds an integer value. So passing arguments to functions is something that you have done before, and you should be familiar with the fact that you can pass pieces of data into functions when you call them. Okay, well now let's look at how you can write your own functions that have the capability of receiving arguments. To demonstrate, I'm going to write a very simple function here in the Python shell, and we'll talk about the details of the function when I'm finished. Okay, so I've written the definition of a function named greeting, and you'll notice that here in the function header I wrote something between the parentheses, this word name. Well, this is a variable. The name of the variable is name. Now when you are writing a function header, any variable that appears inside the parentheses is a special type of variable that we call a parameter variable, or just simply a parameter. Now, a parameter is a variable that receives the value of an argument when the function is called. So when we call the greeting function, we're going to have to pass an argument to it, and that argument will be assigned to the name parameter. So as the function is executing, the name parameter will be assigned the value of any argument that was passed to the function. Okay? So for example, when we call this function, if I pass the name Chris, the string Chris, as an argument, then we should see here, when this statement executes, we should see the message hello Chris. Let's try that. Okay, and there's the expected output. If we call the function and pass some other value, let's say we pass the string Megan, we should see hello Megan. So Once again, any argument that is passed when we call the greeting function, that argument will be assigned to the name parameter, and then here in this statement we'll get the message hello followed by the value of the name parameter. Let's try one more example here in the Python shell before we switch over to an actual Python program. Now this time I'm going to borrow an example from the textbook. So I'm just going to type in this function definition. You follow along and see if you can figure out what the function is going to do. Okay, so here is the function definition. Now, if I were to call the function with this statement, before I press the enter key, let's see if we can sort of step through the code and predict what the output will be. So I'm calling the show double function, passing 5 as an argument. So up here in the function definition, you can see that we have a parameter variable named number. So we know that the argument 5 is going to be assigned to the number parameter. Here inside the function we have this statement, result equal number times 2. Okay, well since number is assigned 5, it's going to be result equal 5 times 2, which is 10. And then here in this statement we're going to print result, which should print the value 10. Well, let's try that. Okay, and that's exactly what we got. Let's call the function again, and this time I'm going to pass 8. Okay, so we should see 16. Now that happened because the argument 8 was passed into the number parameter. This statement is result equal 8 times 2, which is 16, and this statement prints the result variable, which is 16. Okay, well now let's look at a Python program that uses this exact same function and see if we can follow along in that example. In this example, we have a program with two function definitions. Here we have the definition of a function named main, and here we have the definition of the show double function, and this is the same function that we looked at just a moment ago. And then here in this statement calls the main function. So this sort of kicks things off when we run the program. The main function will execute, and here in this statement we assign the value 5 to the value variable. Okay, so at this point value is equal to 5. Then we call show double, passing value as an argument. So the value 5, when show double executes, the value 5 will be assigned to the number parameter. Result equals number times 2, so that means that result equals 5 times 2, which is 10, and then this statement prints result. So when we run this program, we should see the value 10 displayed as the output. Let's try it. Okay, and that's what we get.